Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Starbound and watched the massive alien vessel appear on his screens. The ship was 3 tons bigger than his own and covered in blue metal that seemed to glow in the starlight. He had never seen anything like it before, but he knew what it was from the reports he had read. This was a Valorian warship, and that meant trouble for him and his crew. Jake was 32 years old and had been exploring space for the human colonies for almost 10 years. He was tall with brown hair and green eyes, and his crew trusted him to keep them safe. The Starbound was not a military ship, but it carried enough weapons to defend itself if needed. Jake hoped he would not need them today, but the way the alien ship was moving toward them made him think otherwise. The communication system made a loud beeping sound, and Jake nodded to his officer Linda Torres to open the channel. The screen filled with the image of a creature that made Jake take a step back. The alien had blue scales covering his skin and 4 arms instead of 2. His eyes were yellow and seemed to glow with anger. 2 rows of sharp teeth showed when he spoke, and his voice was deep and threatening. "Human vessel, you are in Valorian space without permission," the alien said in perfect English that surprised Jake. "I am Admiral Kethver of the Valorian Empire, and you will surrender your ship or be destroyed." Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "Admiral, this is Captain Jake Harrison of the human exploration ship Starbound. According to our star maps, this sector is neutral space, and we have every right to be here." The alien admiral laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. "Your maps are wrong, human. The Valorian Empire has claimed this space and all the worlds in it. You weak creatures have no right to travel among the stars with real warriors." Jake felt his anger rise, but kept his voice calm. "We are peaceful explorers, Admiral. We mean no harm to you or your empire. We are simply passing through on our way to the Outer Rim colonies." Kethver leaned forward on his screen, and Jake could see more of the alien bridge behind him. Other blue-scaled creatures moved around working at control stations. But what caught Jake's attention was the human woman standing beside the Admiral's chair. She had long brown hair and wore simple gray clothes. Her eyes looked sad and afraid, and Jake realized she was a prisoner. "You see her human captain," Kethver said when he noticed where Jake was looking. "This is Elena Martinez. She was taken from one of your pathetic colonies 3 years ago when we showed your people what real power looks like. She serves me now and reminds me daily how weak your species truly is." Jake's hands turned into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Let her go, Admiral. She has done nothing wrong and does not deserve to be your prisoner." The alien admiral laughed again and showed his sharp teeth. "She is not a prisoner human. She is my prize and my property, just like your ship will be when I take it from you." Jake looked at the woman again and saw her watching him with hope in her eyes. He made a decision that he knew was dangerous, but felt was right. "Admiral, I challenge you to single combat for her freedom." The bridge of the Starbound went quiet, and Jake could hear his crew members moving behind him. Linda Torres looked at him like he had lost his mind, and Jake knew she was probably right. But he could not leave that woman as a prisoner of this alien creature. Kethver's yellow eyes grew wide, and then he began to laugh louder than before. "You challenge me, human. Me, Admiral Kethver, who has never lost a battle in 20 years of war. You are either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Jake said. "But I challenge you according to whatever laws your people follow. Single combat for the woman's freedom." The alien admiral stopped laughing, and his face became serious. "You do not understand what you ask, human. In Valorian tradition, single combat is to the death. The winner takes everything the loser owns." Everything. Jake felt his heart beating faster, but he did not back down. "I understand, Admiral. Do you accept my challenge? Kethver looked at Elena, and then back at Jake. I accept your challenge, human, but I will raise the stakes. When I kill you, I will take your ship and your crew, as well as keep my beautiful Elena. But if by some miracle you defeat me, she goes free, and I will give you something else as well. What else? Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to. No. Information, Kethver said with an evil smile. Information about Valorian plans that your people would find very interesting. But you will never live to use it, because no human has ever defeated a Valorian warrior in combat. Jake looked at Elena again and saw her shake her head slightly, as if telling him not to do this. But he had already made his choice, and would not change his mind now. I accept your terms, Admiral. When and where do we fight? Kethver's smile became even wider. There is a neutral station called Nexus Point 2 hours flight from here. We will meet there in the traditional combat arena. Prepare yourself, human, because in 6 hours you will be dead, and your woman will still be mine. The communication ended, and the alien ship began to move away toward the coordinates Kethver had given. Jake stood looking at the empty screen for a long moment before turning to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was staring at him with worry and fear in their eyes. Captain, Linda Torres said quietly, are you sure about this? We could try to run or send a message to the fleet for help. Jake shook his head. No, Linda. I gave my word, and I will keep it. Besides, we both saw that woman and what she is going through. I cannot leave her with that creature. His chief engineer, Pete Rodriguez, stepped forward. Jake, we have all heard stories about Valorian warriors. They are bigger and stronger than humans, and they have 4 arms instead of 2. How can you possibly win against something like that? Jake walked to the pilot station and began setting course for Nexus Point. I do not know Pete, but I have to try. Sometimes being human means doing the right thing, even when the odds are against you. The ship turned toward the neutral station, and Jake began to prepare for the most important fight of his life. Nexus Point was unlike anything Jake had ever seen before. The space station was massive and built by a dozen different alien races working together. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports, and creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through its corridors. Jake had heard about neutral stations, but this was his first time visiting one. The combat arena was located in the center of the station, and Jake could see it through the viewing windows as his shuttle approached. It was a perfect sphere made of clear metal that floated in zero gravity. Inside the sphere, he could see platforms and barriers that would give fighters places to hide and move during combat. The arena was designed to test every skill a warrior possessed. Jake wore simple combat gear and carried a standard human energy weapon. He had trained with weapons like this for years, but he knew it would not be enough against a Valorian warrior. As he entered the preparation room, he tried to calm his mind and think of a strategy that might give him a chance to win. The viewing areas around the arena were packed with aliens who had come to watch the fight. Jake could see creatures he had never imagined before, with tentacles and extra eyes and skin in every color possible. Word had spread quickly through the station that a human was going to fight a Valorian admiral, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. Elena was brought to the arena in chains, but Jake was relieved to see she looked unharmed. Kethver walked beside her, wearing traditional Valorian battle armor that covered his blue scales. The armor was black and had energy shields built into it that would protect him from weapon fire. His 4 arms each carried a different weapon, and Jake realized he would be fighting someone with twice as many weapons as he had. An old alien with gray skin and 3 eyes stepped forward to serve as the combat judge. His voice echoed through speakers around the arena as he explained the rules to the crowd and the fighters. This is single combat in the Valorian tradition. The fight continues until one warrior yields or dies. The winner takes all that was wagered by the loser. Jake and Kethver entered the arena from opposite sides, and Jake immediately felt the strange sensation of zero gravity. He had trained in zero gravity before, but it still took time to adjust. Kethver moved like he had been born in space, and Jake realized the alien had a huge advantage in this environment. The crowd grew quiet as the two fighters faced each other across the arena. Jake could see aliens placing bets on the outcome, and he noticed that very few were betting on him to win. He looked up at Elena in the viewing area and saw her watching him with fear and hope mixed in her eyes. "Last chance to surrender, human," Kethver called across the arena. "I will make your death quick if you yield now." Jake checked his weapon and pushed off from the wall to float toward the center of the arena. "I did not come here to surrender, Admiral. I came here to take Elena home." The judge raised his hand and then dropped it to signal the start of combat. Kethver immediately began firing all 4 of his weapons at once, and Jake barely managed to dive behind one of the floating platforms before the energy bolts could hit him. The alien's firepower was incredible, and Jake realized he could not win a direct shooting match. Jake used his smaller size to move quickly between the platforms, while Kethver followed him with overwhelming firepower. The alien was strong and fast, but Jake noticed he fought in predictable patterns. Valorian warriors were trained to fight with honor and follow traditional combat rules. Jake realized his only chance was to fight in ways the alien would not expect. Instead of trying to match Kethver's firepower, Jake began using the arena itself as a weapon. He pushed platforms into the alien's path and used the zero gravity to change direction in ways that confused his opponent. When Kethver expected him to retreat, Jake would suddenly attack from an unexpected angle. The crowd began to murmur as they watched Jake avoid death again and again. No one had expected the human to last more than a few seconds against it. Valorian Admiral, but Jake was still fighting after 10 minutes. Some of the aliens began to cheer for him as they realized they were watching something special. Jake waited for his moment, and when it came, he took a huge risk. Instead of hiding behind a platform, he launched himself directly at Kethver with his weapon firing. The alien was so surprised by this direct attack that he hesitated for just a second. Jake used that second to grab onto Kethver's armor and hold on as the alien spun through the arena, trying to shake him off. Fighting while attached to his opponent, Jake was able to disable 2 of Kethver's 4 weapons before the alien finally threw him off. But now the fight was more even, and Jake pressed his advantage. He used every dirty trick he had ever learned, and several he made up on the spot. He threw pieces of broken platform at Kethver's head and used his smaller size to stay close where the alien's longer arms were less effective. Kethver became angry as the fight continued, and Jake could see the alien was not used to opponents who refused to follow traditional combat rules. The Admiral's attacks became wilder and less controlled. As his frustration grew, Jake stayed calm and waited for the alien to make a mistake. The mistake came when Kethver tried to corner Jake against one of the arena walls. The alien Admiral flew toward him with all remaining weapons firing, but Jake pushed off the wall at the last second, and Kethver crashed into the barrier behind him. The impact stunned the alien for just a moment, but it was enough. Jake wrapped his arm around Kethver's neck and pressed his weapon against the alien's head. "Yield," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The arena fell completely silent, and Jake could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Kethver struggled for a moment, but then stopped moving as he realized he was beaten. "I yield," the Admiral said in a voice that sounded like it was full of pain and shame. The crowd exploded into noise as aliens cheered and screamed in dozens of different languages. Jake had done something that no one thought was possible. A human had defeated a Valorian warrior in single combat, and the news would spread across the galaxy within hours. Jake released Kethver and floated back as station security entered the arena. The alien admiral looked at him with something that might have been respect, mixed with his anger and shame. You fight without honor, human, but you fight to win. Perhaps there is more to your species than I believed. Elena was released from her chains and brought down to the arena floor. When she saw Jake, she began to cry, and he realized she had not believed he could actually win. Jake floated over to her and took her hands in his. You are free now, he told her gently. No one will ever make you a prisoner again. Elena looked up at him with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I thought I would never see another human again. Jake helped her toward the arena exit, where his crew was waiting to take them both back to the Starbound. Behind them, Kethver was led away by station security to face the shame of his defeat. The impossible had happened, and Jake, Harrison, had become the first human to defeat a Valorian admiral in combat. Elena Martinez sat in the small guest quarters aboard the Starbound and tried to remember what it felt like to be free. For 3 years, she had lived as Kethver's prize and property, and now suddenly she was among humans again. The room was simple, but clean, and Jake had made sure she had everything she needed. Still, she found herself jumping at every sound and checking the door to make sure it was not locked. Jake had been very careful to give her space and time to adjust. He visited her twice each day to check on her needs, but never stayed long or pressured her to talk. Elena appreciated his kindness, but she was not sure how to trust anyone after what she had been through. The Valorians had taught her that kindness was always followed by cruelty, and she found it hard to believe things could be different. Now, Dr. Lucy Chun was the ship's medical officer, and she had examined Elena shortly after they left Nexus Point. Lucy was a small woman with gentle hands and a soft voice who reminded Elena of her sister back on New Terra. The doctor had found signs of old injuries and malnutrition, but nothing that would not heal with time and proper care. Your body will recover, Lucy had told her during the examination, but healing your mind and spirit will take longer. Do not rush yourself, and do not be afraid to ask for help when you need it. Elena had nodded, but she was not sure she knew how to ask for help anymore. The Valorians had punished her for showing weakness, and she had learned to keep her feelings hidden deep inside where they could not be used against her. Now she had to learn how to be human again, and it was harder than she had expected. Pete Rodriguez was the chief engineer, and he brought Elena meals from the ship's kitchen. He was a friendly man who talked about his family back on Earth and made Elena smile with stories about his children. Pete never asked her about her time with the Valorians, and Elena was grateful for that. She was not ready to talk about those 3 years yet. My daughter Maria is about your age, Pete told her one day while bringing her lunch. She is studying to become a teacher on Mars Colony. When we get back to human space, I will send her a message and tell her about the brave woman who survived 3 years with aliens and lived to tell about it. Elena looked down at her food and shook her head. I am not brave, Pete. I just did whatever I had to do to stay alive. That is exactly what makes you brave, Pete said with a smile. Surviving when everything seems hopeless is the bravest thing anyone can do. On the 4th day of their journey, Jake asked Elena if she would like to see the ship's common area where the crew ate their meals together. Elena was nervous about being around so many people, but she agreed because she was tired of staying in her room all the time. The common area was bigger than she expected and had windows that showed the stars moving past as they traveled through space. The crew members were polite and welcoming, but Elena could see the questions in their eyes. They wanted to know what had happened to her and what the Valorians were really like. Elena appreciated that they did not ask these questions out loud, but she could feel their curiosity, like a weight on her shoulders. Jake sat beside her during the meal and made sure she felt included in the conversation without forcing her to participate. He told stories about the places they had visited and the strange things they had discovered during their explorations. Elena found herself relaxing as she listened to him talk and realized this was the first time she had felt safe in years. After dinner, Jake walked with her back toward her quarters, but stopped at an observation deck along the way. Through the large windows, they could see a nebula painting the space around them in colors of purple and gold. Elena had forgotten how beautiful space could be when you are not a prisoner forced to look at it. "I need to ask you something, Elena," Jake said, quietly. "And please know that you do not have to answer if you are not ready." Elena tensed up, but nodded for him to continue. "We are about 2 weeks away from human space, and when we arrive, you will have choices to make about your future," Jake said. "You can return to New Terra if your family is still there, or we can help you start over somewhere else. But there is another option if you are interested." "What option?" Elena asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know. Jake turned to face her, and Elena could see honesty in his green eyes. "You could stay with us aboard the Starbound. You know things about the Valorians that could help protect human colonies from future attacks. Your knowledge could save thousands of lives." Elena felt a chill run through her body. "You want me to talk about what happened to me, to relive all of it so you can use it for military planning?" "Only if you want to," Jake said quickly. "I would never force you to do anything, Elena, but I thought you should know that your experiences could help other people avoid what you went through." Elena walked closer to the window and stared out at the nebula. For 3 years she had watched Kethver and his officers plan attacks on human colonies. She had listened to them discuss human weaknesses and laugh about how easy it was to defeat human defenses. She had memorized ship designs and weapon capabilities and trade routes without even realizing she was doing it. "I know things," she said, quietly. "Things about their military and their politics and their plans for expansion. I know which colonies they consider worth attacking and which ones they think are too well defended." Jake stepped up beside her but did not touch her. "That information could help save lives, Elena, but only if you feel ready to share it." Elena was quiet for a long time while she thought about Jake's words. Part of her wanted to forget everything about the Valorians and never think about them again. But another part of her remembered the other human prisoners she had seen during her captivity. Women and men who had been taken from their families and would never see home again unless someone stopped the Valorian raids. "I will think about it," she said finally. "I need more time to decide what I want to do with my life." Jake nodded and gave her a small smile. "Take all the time you need, Elena. Whatever you decide, we will support your choice." As they walked back toward her quarters, Elena realized something had changed inside her. For the first time in 3 years, she was thinking about the future instead of just surviving each day. She was starting to believe that maybe she could have a real life again instead of just existing as someone's property. That night, Elena slept better than she had since leaving Nexus Point. In her dreams, she was not running from Valorian guards or hiding from Kethver's anger. Instead, she was standing on the bridge of a human ship, surrounded by people who respected her and valued her opinions. When she woke up the next morning, she realized the dream had felt more real than any nightmare she had experienced in years. Elena made her decision 3 days later when she saw a message from Human Fleet Command asking for any information about Valorian capabilities. She walked to Jake's quarters and knocked on his door. When he answered, she could see surprise in his eyes at her unexpected visit. "I want to help," she said simply. "I want to make sure no one else goes through what I experienced. Tell me what you need to know." Elena stood in the Starbound's briefing room and looked at the star charts covering the walls. She had been working with Jake and his crew for 2 months now, and these charts showed everything she had told them about Valorian space, trade routes, were marked in blue and military bases in red, while yellow lines showed the paths Valorian raiders used to attack human colonies. Jake watched Elena point to different systems and explain the details she remembered from her time with Keffer. Her memory was incredible, and she could recall conversations and tactical data that human intelligence had been trying to gather for years. But Jake noticed how difficult it was for her to share these memories, and he made sure she never had to. Work alone. This system here, Elena said, while pointing to a cluster of stars near the border between human and Valorian space. Keffer called it the Gateway. The Valorians have been building a massive shipyard there for the past 2 years. They plan to use it as a staging area for a major offensive against human colonies. Lucy Chun looked up from her datapad, where she had been taking notes. How many ships can they build there, Elena? Elena closed her eyes, and Jake could see her forcing herself to remember details she would rather forget. Keffer said they could produce 50 warships per year once construction was complete. He was very proud of this project and talked about it often during the planning meetings I was forced to attend. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what this meant. 50 Valorian warships per year would give the aliens enough firepower to overwhelm human defenses in most systems. This information needed to reach Fleet Command immediately so they could plan a response before it was too late. Pete Rodriguez entered the briefing room, carrying a message pad, and his face looked worried. Jake, we just received a priority communication from Admiral Brooks at Fleet Headquarters. She wants to speak with you and Elena immediately. Jake and Elena made their way to the communication center, where the main screen showed Admiral Brooks waiting for them. The Admiral was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had been fighting aliens longer than most humans had been alive. Jake had served under her command years ago and knew she was both brilliant and ruthless when necessary. Captain Harrison, Admiral Brooks said after the connection was established. I have been reading the intelligence reports you have been sending, and I must say I am impressed. The information Elena has provided has already helped us prevent 3 Valorian attacks on our outer colonies. Elena stepped forward so the Admiral could see her clearly. Admiral, I am glad the information has been useful, but there is much more that needs to be shared. The Valorians are planning something much bigger than random raids on colonies. Admiral Brooks leaned forward with interest. Tell me more, Elena. What kind of plans are you talking about? Elena took a deep breath before answering. A full-scale invasion of human space, Admiral. Keffer and the other commanders have been working on this plan for over a year. They believe humans are too weak to mount an effective defense against a coordinated assault. The Admiral was quiet for a moment while she considered this information. How long do we have before they are ready to launch this invasion? Based on what I overheard, I estimate 18 months, Admiral, Elena replied. Maybe less if they can speed up production at their new shipyard in the Gateway system. Admiral Brooks nodded slowly. Elena, I am officially offering you a position as a strategic intelligence analyst with Fleet Command. Your knowledge of Valorian capabilities and intentions makes you invaluable to our defense planning. Elena looked at Jake before answering. Thank you, Admiral, but I would prefer to continue working with Captain Harrison and his crew. We have developed an effective partnership, and I believe I can be more useful here than sitting behind a desk. At headquarters, Jake felt a surge of pride in Elena's words, but also concern for her safety. Admiral, the Starbound is an exploration vessel, not a military ship. If Elena stays with us, she could be in danger if we encounter more Valorian forces. That is exactly why I want her to stay with you, Captain, Admiral Brooks said with a smile. I am changing the Starbound's mission parameters. You are now attached to Fleet Intelligence, and your job is to gather more information about Valorian activities along the border. Elena's expertise will be crucial for this work. After the communication ended, Jake and Elena walked to the observation deck, where they often went to talk privately. Jake could see that Elena was nervous about their new assignment, and he wanted to make sure she understood what she was agreeing to do. "Elena, you do not have to do this," Jake said gently. "Admiral Brooks would understand if you changed your mind and wanted to return to civilian life." Elena shook her head firmly. "No, Jake, I have made my decision. For 3 years, I was helpless while the Valorians used me and hurt my people. Now I have a chance to fight back, and I am not going to waste it." Jake admired her courage, but he was also worried about what this mission might cost her emotionally. "This work will mean facing more memories about your time with Kethver. Are you sure you are ready for that?" Elena turned to look at him, and Jake could see determination in her brown eyes. "I will never be completely ready, Jake, but I cannot let fear stop me from doing what is right. Besides, I will not be doing this alone. I have you and the crew to support me." Over the following weeks, Jake and Elena worked together more closely than ever before. She taught him about Valorian culture and military tactics, while he showed her how human exploration teams operated in dangerous territory. Jake found himself impressed by Elena's intelligence and strength, and he began to see her as much more than just a survivor of alien captivity. Elena began to trust Jake in ways she had not trusted anyone since her capture. He never pushed her to share more than she was comfortable with, and he always made sure she felt safe and respected. Slowly she began to open up about her experiences, and Jake learned about the incredible mental strength it had taken for her to survive 3 years as Kethver's prisoner. One evening, while they were working late in the briefing room, Elena suddenly stopped talking and stared at one of the star charts. Jake could see tears in her eyes, and he moved closer to see what had upset her. "That system there," Elena said, while pointing to a small red dot on the map. "That is where New Terra was located. That is where I lived before Kethver took me." Jake looked at the coordinates and realized they were less than a day's travel from their current position. "Elena, would you like to go there? We could visit the colony and see if any of your family or friends survived the attack." Elena wiped away her tears and shook her head. "No, Jake, there is nothing left there. The Valorians destroyed everything when they raided the colony. I am the only survivor, and I need to focus on the future instead of the past." Jake reached out and gently took her hand. "Elena, you are not just a survivor. You are one of the strongest people I have ever met, and I am honored to work with you." Elena looked down at their joined hands, and Jake could see something change in her expression. For the first time since he had met her, she seemed to truly believe that she had value, beyond just the information she could provide about the Valorians. "Thank you, Jake," she said quietly. "I never thought I would be able to trust anyone again, but you have shown me that not all men want to own or control the women in their lives." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "Elena, you are your own person, and you get to decide what you want to do with your life. I will support whatever choice you make." That night, Elena did not return to her quarters, but instead fell asleep in the briefing room while working on intelligence reports. Jake found her there in the morning and covered her with a blanket rather than wake her up. When she finally woke up, she smiled at him in a way that made his heart skip a beat, and Jake realized his feelings for her had grown beyond professional respect. Elena stood in the small kitchen area of Jake's quarters and smiled as she prepared breakfast for both of them. 6 months had passed since Jake had defeated Kethver in combat and freed her from captivity. Now she woke up each morning in a place she had never expected to find again, a place where she felt safe and valued and loved. The smell of coffee filled the air as Elena worked at the food preparation unit. She had learned to cook human food again after years of eating whatever the Valorians had given her. Simple things like eggs and toast had become precious to her because they represented the life she was building for herself instead of the existence that had been forced upon her. Jake emerged from the sleeping area, wearing his uniform, and Elena felt the familiar warmth in her chest that came from seeing him each morning. Their relationship had developed slowly over months of working together and learning to trust each other. Elena had needed time to heal from her trauma, and Jake had been patient while she learned how to love someone who treated her as an equal. "Partner, good morning," Jake said as he wrapped his arms around Elena from behind and kissed the top of her head. "That smells wonderful." Elena leaned back against his chest and enjoyed the feeling of being held by someone who would never hurt her. "I made your favorite breakfast, Captain Harrison. You have a busy day ahead of you, and you need to eat properly." Jake laughed and sat down at their small table while Elena served the food she had prepared. They had fallen into comfortable routines. Over the past few months, and these quiet morning moments had become the most important part of each day for both of them. Elena treasured these times when they could simply be Jake and Elena instead of Captain and Intelligence Analyst. "The crew meeting is at 0800, Jake said between bites of his breakfast. "Admiral Brooks wants a full report on the intelligence we gathered about the Valorian shipyard in the gateway system." Elena nodded as she poured coffee for both of them. Her work with Jake and his crew had helped Human Fleet Command understand Valorian capabilities better than ever before. The information she provided had already prevented dozens of attacks on human colonies and saved thousands of lives. Elena felt proud of this work, but she also knew it was dangerous, and that their peaceful mornings together might not last forever. The communication system in Jake's quarters made a soft chiming sound that indicated an incoming priority message. Jake frowned as he stood up to answer it, because they were not expecting any communications this early in the morning. Elena watched his face change from confusion to surprise as he read the message on his personal display. "What is it, Jake?" Elena asked when she saw his expression. Jake turned to face her with the message pad still in his hand. "Elena, you are not going to believe this. We just received a request for asylum from someone who wants to meet with us." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as old fears from her captivity began to surface. "Who would request asylum from us, Jake? We are not a diplomatic vessel." Jake sat back down at the table and showed Elena the message. "It is from Kethvar. He says he has been stripped of his rank and exiled from the Valorian Empire because of his defeat at Nexus Point. He wants to defect to human space and claims he has information about the Valorian invasion plans." Elena stared at the message and felt her hands begin to shake. The name Kethvar brought back memories she had worked hard to suppress, and she was not sure she was ready to face her former captor again. Jake immediately noticed her reaction and moved his chair closer to hers. "Elena, we do not have to meet with him," Jake said gently while taking her hands in his. "I can forward this message to Fleet Command and let them deal with Kethvar. You never have to see him again if you do not want to." Elena closed her eyes and forced herself to think clearly about what this message meant. Kethvar had been one of the highest-ranking Valorian military officers, and his knowledge of invasion plans would be invaluable to human defenses. If he was truly willing to defect and share information, it could save millions of human lives. "No, Jake," Elena said after, taking a deep breath. "We need to meet with him. The information he has could be crucial for stopping the Valorian invasion." Jake studied her face carefully. "Elena, are you sure about this? I know how difficult it would be for you to see Kethvar again after everything he did to you." Elena stood up and walked to the window where she could see the stars moving past their ship. "Jake, I spent 3 years as that creature's prisoner and trophy. He used me to show other Valorians how weak humans were, and I was powerless to stop him. But now, things are different." Jake joined her at the window, and Elena could see his concern for her in the reflection of the glass. "How are things different, Elena?" Elena turned to face Jake and he could see strength and determination in her brown eyes. "No, I am not his prisoner anymore. I am Elena Martinez, strategic intelligence analyst for the human fleet and the woman, who helped expose Valorian military secrets. I am not afraid of Kethver anymore, because I know who I really am." Jake smiled and pulled Elena into his arms. "You are also the woman I love, and I am very proud of your courage." Elena kiss.